In this video, I'm gonna show you how to not just survive, but dominate SEO in the AI era. The way I look at it, we have an entirely new channel to get customers from on top of Google. And if you know how to take advantage of it, you can get more customers from SEO than ever before. In fact, Backlinko continues to generate countless leads every single month, largely thanks to traditional SEO and AI SEO. And it's the same story for another site that I started, Exploding Topics. We went from not optimizing for LLMs at all to ranking in countless AI overviews. And in this video, I'm gonna walk you through the entire playbook step by step. Before I get into the specific steps, it's important to understand exactly how SEO has changed, because a lot of people have this all wrong. Back in the day, SEO was all about things like on-page optimization, keyword targeting, and trying to rank in a specific spot for a specific keyword. Now, obviously, these things still exist and they're important. I mean, if you rank #1 in Google for the keyword credit card, you could pretty much buy a private island. And that's true whether LLMs exist or not. But what has changed is that these old school SEO approaches aren't enough anymore, because they don't always help you rank in AI answers, which is obviously where the huge upside is today. Why is that? Well, look at how search behavior and the SERPs themselves has changed over the last few years. AI answers now appear above the traditional SERPs in most cases. Zero-click search is now the default for most searches, and traffic doesn't always correlate with where you rank in Google. In other words, SEO is actually more like social media now, where it's all about getting eyeballs on your site and the occasional high intent click. For example, look at the SERP for a keyword that's pretty high intent for exploding topics. As you can see, we rank #1 in the 10 blue links section of the search results. But unlike back in the day, that #1 result is pretty far down the page. It's even below a bunch of ads and a big AI overview. That's the bad news. The good news is that we also appear as a suggested tool inside the AI overview. And if you click on one of the top sources in the AI overview, sure enough, Exploding Topics is on that list. So yeah, that's pretty much SEO today in a nutshell. We still get quite a few clicks on that traditional #1 result. Probably fewer than before, to be honest, which is not great. But the upside is Google is getting our brand in front of customers in multiple different places in the search results, which means anyone searching for this high intent keyword will see our brand several times. So when they're ready to make a decision on a trend tracking tool, we're everywhere that they look. And in case you're wondering, we also rank for tons of high intent prompts in ChatGPT too. With that, it's time for me to show you how to get your site to rank in AI overviews, ChatGPT, Gemini, and more. So the biggest SEO shift happening right now, first, let's cover this core shift from keywords to entities. What this basically means in plain English is that LLMs really focus on who you are, not what you publish on your site. As you probably know, with traditional SEO, every page sort of stands on its own. LLMs like ChatGPT don't work that way. Instead of exact match keywords and pages, LLMs are all about entities. And I should point out that normal old school SEO is also shifting towards entities too. So what do I mean exactly when I say entities? Entities are basically a mental model of brands, people, tools, concepts, and more. If a brand, person, or tool is constantly seen associated with some sort of concept, an LLM ties those together and considers them similar. For example, Exploding Topics appears alongside entities like trend detection and trend spotting in news articles that discuss emerging market trends, research write-ups that reference trend discovery tools, tool comparison posts that list our trend platforms along with others side by side, and YouTube videos that talk about how to spot trends early on. Over time, this means that Exploding Topics becomes the default candidate when people use prompts like, what are the best tools for finding trends? And to be clear, these sources aren't directly controlled by us, Exploding Topics, but they repeat the same core idea, that Exploding Topics is associated with early trend discovery. The question is, how do you do it? Let's get right into the steps. Your first step is to choose one concept that you want AI to associate with your brand. And to be clear, this shouldn't be a broad category like CRM software or creatine supplements. Instead, the entity you choose needs to be a hyper-specific idea, one that can get easily repeated over and over again without looking spammy or forced. That way, LLMs can easily associate you and your brand with a very specific entity. For example, as you've seen, exploding topics is associated with early trend detection. Now, obviously, there are other agencies and tools out there that spot trends early on. But this entity was specific enough that we could stand out and become associated with early trend detection. Another site that I started, Backlinko, is strongly associated with actionable SEO strategies. Not so much keyword research or on-page SEO. Instead, that site is really known for techniques that anyone can use to get higher rankings in Google. In your case, just pick something that you want your brand to be known for. Make it specific and move on to the next step, which is to create an entity hub on your site. Here's where you create a single page or a series of pages that explain the concept better than anyone else online. Now, I should point out, it's important that this page is published on your website. It can be on your About page, it can be a blog post, it can be a guide. The format and where it is on your site doesn't really matter. The key thing is that you're starting the association between the entity you want and your brand. For example, over time, Exploding Topics has published a lot of different articles about trend detection, which, alongside the steps I'm going to cover next, is one of the main reasons that we're so closely associated with trend detection. But if I was just starting out today, I'd literally start with one page about finding trends early on, and I make it super special so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of everything else that's already been published. You really want this page to make LLMs say, wow, I've never seen this insight before. Let's train on this page in this unique concept. Which leads us to our next step, step 3, seed that entity across several independent sources. So publishing a page or a series of pages on your site is an important first step. But for LLMs to associate your brand with a specific entity, they need to see the entity plus your brand appear over and over and over again, especially on third-party websites. That's why to rank in LLMs, you need to seed your entity association on as many third-party sites as possible. Here's where this sort of seeding works best. For example, look at this page about conducting a market trend analysis. See how they mention exploding topics and emerging trends side by side? That's the exact sort of thing that LLMs notice when they see that association over and over again. The question is, how do you do it? Well, there are 2 ways to build these sort of seed citations. Because if you build a legit brand, these mentions will happen naturally over time. For example, at Exploding Topics, we did things to build our brand like we had a free version of our tool publicly available. You don't even need a login to access it. We sent out a weekly newsletter without fail for 4 years straight. We published countless original research and data studies, and we shared some of our trend data on Twitter/X. All of which led to literally hundreds of brand mentions from authority sites, Reddit, and more. But if your brand is new or you just want to get a jump start, here are a few ways to directly seed these things yourself. First, you want to get included in comparison and best of blog posts. All you need to do is find pages that are already ranking or getting traffic that already list tools, products, or services in your niche. Then reach out to the author of that page with a very brief, non-hypey description of what you do. For example, a while back, I reached out to sites that had a broken link on one of their pages, and I asked them to replace their dead link with a link to my site. That way, I wasn't just begging for a link or a mention, I was doing something to get my foot in the door first. You can also seed answers in online communities like Reddit and Quora. Now, you really only want to answer questions where people legitimately ask for recommendations like this. Otherwise, if you force it, you're probably going to get banned. And again, you really want to focus more on the entity than trying to get a link. Another strategy that's working great right now is to get mentioned in podcasts and YouTube videos in your niche. The good news is that even small channels and podcasts still count. That's because the show notes, transcripts, and descriptions will reinforce entity associations. For example, here's an interview I did to help promote Exploding Topics. As you can see, the host and I naturally use terms related to spotting trends while talking about my brand, Exploding Topics. This is a very powerful signal for LLMs. Now, in general, if you are able to control how you're mentioned, you want to use similar phrasing each time, and don't be afraid to repeat the same terms, but you also don't want to look spammy. Now, if you're not able to control all this stuff, no worries. If your brand shows up with the entity enough times, the LLMs will make the connection on their own. Which leads us to our next step. Step number 4, create AI-friendly content. Back in the day, it honestly kind of made sense sometimes to pad your content with fluff and filler. I know you've all seen those recipe pages with a massive intro about how they discovered their chicken parmesan recipe from a trip to Tuscany in 1985. Those days are thankfully over. Today, the main goal is to make your content easy for AI to extract and restate accurately. Specifically, here's how to do that. First, you want to answer the question immediately, preferably at the top of the page. Specifically, you want 1 to 2 sentences at the top of the page that answer the question almost exactly. Here's a real life example. And when you answer the question, as you can see here, you want to make sure to use clear, declarative language. This isn't the time to use flowery copy or buzzwords. And while you're at it, just say what's true. You don't really want to hedge, you want to state things confidently. Here's an example. See how I just answer and just state the facts? That's what you want to do. That said, you still want to rein in the scope of your claims sometimes. Otherwise, what you're saying may come off as not credible. So unless a statement needs to be super broad, which sometimes it's okay to do, feel free to add qualifiers like who it applies to, what it doesn't apply to, and situations where the answer may just not make sense. Here's an example of a statement that includes a qualifier. In other words, you want to be hyper direct with what you're explaining, but don't be so broad that you're talking out of your you-know-what. The final step of creating AI-friendly content is to make sure that you structure your page the right way. So at a page level, you still want to structure your content for readers first, but also with an eye towards AI training. In practice, make sure that your pages have this stuff going for them. Backlinko's content is honestly kind of a case study in how to structure your content for humans and AI. Almost every page is structured to make it easy for readers that land on the page to find exactly what they're looking for, and for LLMs to pull out and use the site as a source for answering prompts. So yeah, that's all there is to it. Which leads us to our last step, step 5, don't sleep on traditional SEO strategies. Let me be clear about something. Traditional SEO still matters a lot. LLMs still pull heavily from the open internet, and Google is still the main place where new content gets discovered. In fact, when you look at pages that tend to do really well in AI answers, you'll quickly notice a pattern. They almost always have sound SEO fundamentals. So if your site is slow, messy, thin, hard to crawl, etc., AI isn't going to magically fix that for you. So you don't want to ignore it. That's why I'm still obsessed with nailing things like on-page SEO, content quality, and backlinks. Like I mentioned back in the beginning of this video, Exploding Topics still generates leads from Google every single month. Now, some of these are from AI overviews, but a lot of them are from people clicking the 10 blue links results. That's why a lot of people that have seen a big traffic drop over the last few years haven't really seen a change in their conversions. So the way I think about traditional SEO and AI SEO is simple. When you nail the basics, plus add in some AI SEO, you can use both of these channels together to grow your online business. So yeah, that's my SEO strategy that I'm using right now. Now I'd like to hear from you. Has AI changed your approach to SEO at all? If so, how so? Let me know and leave a comment below right now.